2019 was a growth year for Valve. The year started in a place almost no one could understand and ended with 2 brand new games known to the public and a significant increase in external communication through social media, content releases, and much more. A bunch of other stuff has changed, but not every change was for the better. For every Half-Life Alyx-esque move we have, there's an Artifact 1.0. So to better understand the situation that Valve and the public is in, let's go over all the perceived pros and cons of this new iteration of Valve, or as we call it here on VNN, Valve 2.0. Here we go. Twitter, Instagram, official Discord servers, the Valve of 2020 is a completely different entity in terms of reaching out. What was once viewed as the most opaque companies in the entire industry now seems to have gotten with the times and opens itself up to the world. Now, it's totally possible to place a lot of the blame for this massive step towards the new Steam BizDev people or the PR directors, mostly due to how those who held the job for the longest time still prioritize print over video, but that's a whole other story. It's an entirely different world where the long-awaited follow-up to Episode 2 was announced in a tweet, while all the Underlords devs are easily reachable on an official Discord server. Long gone are the days of sending an email to a possibly correct email address, waiting 2 months, and finally getting a 2-word response. Well, I mean, that's still how Valve answers their emails, but we do have a good step in the right direction. Going from absolutely nothing for years to an incredibly active entity acting in the means expected of modern games companies comes with some growing pains. And although most of those pains were felt in like 2018, now that the team has done the unthinkable and pushed out the masterpiece of a Half-Life game that is Half-Life Alyx, things are obviously changing. Gone are the days of Valve being a scrappy bunch of devs attempting to change the world. Those changes already happened, and now Valve is a massive billion-dollar corporate entity. So, other, unfortunately expected movements are happening as well. Valve now has to put on a public face, meaning that instead of being casual when discussing the goings-on of the company and letting the software speak for itself, they have a lot of psychologists cleaning up every public word the company states. Now, this isn't bad on its face. The issue raises when the public face is selling a reality that is best to consume but isn't best representing the actual reality of the situation. For example, Half-Life Alyx was significantly rewritten starting around early 2019. However, according to all public accounts of this title, this rewrite seems to be completely fabricated. Now, this is compared to Half-Life 2 and Half-Life 1, which Valve was very open about restart points in their development cycle. This modern Valve, as active as they may be, are incredibly structured in their public-facing communication, cleaned up to best represent their own wanted narrative. All of the cons are likely nothing compared to this pro for most of you, however. As you will soon learn, Half-Life Alyx isn't just a game that Valve thinks they will be continuing on in the future. That work is already being started. Not only was a major internal philosophical shift made in late 2018 from shipping internally to shipping externally, but the fire that the team lit under the VR industry's pants is one that only they can continue for the next few years. Valve is back to making games. I personally have evidence of quite a few titles in some form of development. However, until Half-Life Alyx is out and the buzz dies down, I'll be keeping that to myself. But the point is made. As long as Valve is cranking out classics like they were 15 years ago, most of the industry will ignore any of these negatives, including a lot of you out there, I'm sure. The games that Valve will be pumping out over the next few years are incredibly exciting, as is the apparent rebirth of the company as a whole. However, the question is still hanging over everyone that has been around for more than a few years. What exactly happened? What was causing Valve to do nothing major publicly from 2012 until now? The interesting thing about the situation is this information does exist out in the open. However, most don't believe it, and now, regardless of accuracy, Valve will publicly deny it. Back in January, Valve's VP of PR gave an interview to IGN about the existence of Left 4 Dead 3, stating that it was not being worked on and was never being worked on in any meaningful capacity, only being experimented on for a short period of time. The issue is that there's a lot of evidence to suggest that the game was around for a significantly longer period of time, about 5 years. However, if Valve were to come out publicly and discuss in detail how they lost years of employee time to a game no one will see, it really would reflect poorly on the company as a whole. So, while enjoying Half-Life Alyx and all of the public press that Valve does to promote it, keep in mind that the company appears to be on a campaign to erase the Dark Ages, being the time between 2012 and 2017. By the way, a video that will show off all the receipts and evidence that Left 4 Dead 3 was in existence for a long time is close to follow this one. With Half-Life Alyx only days away and the Source 2 port of Counter-Strike Global Offensive soon to follow, the tools to work within Valve's long-awaited new engine is finally upon us. And that opens up far more than just general content creation possibilities. Not since the release of Half-Life 2 has Valve released such a drastic upgrade to their public toolset, and with it, at least in relation to Half-Life Alyx, never has Valve ever released a convenient means of sharing that content with other players and Valve themselves. In the same way that the workshop for TF2 created a few self-employed opportunities that later led to careers in the industry, so too will the major Source 2 content creators not only be finding themselves job offers from industry leaders, but Valve themselves. Mission Improbable, Minerva Metastasis, Valve has a history of hiring from their own communities. However, due to their own lack of releases, it's become far harder to find talent in the dwindling pool of people that still work within mapping tools from 2004. Now, Valve can find the best talent again thanks to tools that have gotten with the times. Custom content, maps, mods, and jobs are all here again, and hopefully to stay. However, a lot of the people that were causing the problems originally are still there, and they're not going to be leaving anytime soon. Valve is an infinite money fountain thanks to the revenue that Steam has brought. And because of that, there are employees that can comfortably stay at Valve until they can no longer physically work. And the power that they bring to the table can ruin careers overnight. This is one of the major problems that was driving games away from releasing. And to be completely honest, these were the same people that were driving the narrative that because of the lost DNA over the years, Valve would never have been able to create another Half-Life 2. Now, thankfully, those people have been proven wrong, but that doesn't mean they're going to be losing their positions because they were wrong. They hold their positions because of their tenure, because of their rockstar status, and because of the public-facing fame that they bring to the company. So, all Valve fans kind of have to keep the fear in the back of their minds that even though Valve is back in a large way, the same architects of the Dark Ages are still there. They're not going anywhere, and they could still very easily ruin everything. And that also isn't to mention that a lot of people lost their jobs over the last 10 years trying to do something like Half-Life Alyx. And it must be painful to look back and see their work being used, even though during their employee evaluation period, they were made out to look like incredibly invaluable people to the team. Valve, unfortunately, internally is still a mess. Just because they have a public communication system in place doesn't mean the stacked ranking system, rigged employee evaluation systems, rockstar status causing some incredible political shifts, and every movement needing to have a rockstar backing you up for it to even happen is still how Valve operates. They, fortunately, are adding a little bit of accountability thanks to all of this public communication. But the question still remains. Are the same people that were causing the problems 10 years ago still going to be causing problems after Half-Life Alyx? I sure hope not. And then of course you have a point that isn't a pro or a con. Valve's priorities are changing. We're finally starting to see single-player campaigns releasing again. But that means things like Team Fortress 2, Source Filmmaker shorts, and hardware are definitely not a priority anymore. That, to some people, is an enormous blow. But for others, that's exactly what they've wanted this entire time. It really just comes down to taste. And personally, I'm happy to see single-player campaigns, but it does suck to see something like Team Fortress 2 die so Half-Life Alyx can live. I'm Tyler McVicker. This is Valve News Network. Have a good day. Adios.